What's up? What's up? This is the crypto cheat sheet market update on the fucking worst day that we could have a market update.
You
Bitcoin
are welcome.
looks like hell. So we're drinking and talking about the market tonight.
I don't think you can talk about this market without having some sort of alcohol or hard drugs. Take your
Oh
pick.
man. So, Trey, let's pull up the chart here and let's look at this thing.
So, we've been talking for a long time, especially since we bounced off 6K in February, that breaking above 12K was crucial to have any chance at continuing the bull trend, or at least the immediate bull trend. So we've basically been in a downtrend since December. I think it's very clear, and especially now that you chart what has unfolded in the past 2 months since the beginning of February, it's very clear where we're at. Now, we haven't made new lows yet from February, but judging by the way this looks right now, real difficult to see this not continuing downward and potentially making new lows here in the near term. So I'm not trying to call for new lows, but there's certainly some momentum going that way. We tried to bounce last week. We had a miracle close a couple Sundays ago, but there's just so much overhead resistance right there with the 50 and 200 EMA, the 200 moving average, and the tin can and kitchen, where it's just like you're going to have a massive event similar to like ETFs being announced, or a long consolidation to build up positions to actually make a run and break through all that, or you have to let those reset. And clearly, we're not in a position right now where we're going to break back above those. Back early March, we looked like we were recovering right there at the Kumo flip, and we just stalled at that line. And since then, it's been 12K to 6,800 and still going. I mean, it's there. If you're looking for a bottom right now, don't try and pick it with margin. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, I mean it's we're in a precarious situation here, but I think you're looking at this chart. I mean, you've still got a potential, you still got a potential double bottom here.
Yep.
This bottom at 6K, we're sitting at we had a low of 66.57 on Bitfinex. It's just going to be a matter of what happens if, or well, more than likely when we get down to 6K, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's
if we bounce hard there, then maybe you're talking about, you
yeah.
still got a lot to fight through, though. You're right. There's so much above you.
If we don't make new lows and get another sharp bounce, I mean, you look at that volume candle on February 6th. If we get something like that, like sure, you reassess at that point, but all you can really do if you're trying to trade is look at the chart and play the chart. And right now, there is nothing about that chart that's reversal soon. And
Oh
so,
no.
we're certainly watching 6K. I think there's a fair chance that 6K holds, but there has been so much buying at 8K, and that level was defended so hard. Once that broke, it's kind of opening the floodgates now to what potentially is lower. And that was a really really crucial level. We thought we were in that 8 to 12K range. We'd been there for almost 2 months, and really longer than that since mid January, and now we're below it. So really, we're watching that 6 to 8K range and seeing what happens there. If we get back above 8, all right, we'll talk. But right now, more than likely, we're watching that 6K range.
Yeah, let's look. So, one thing that we want to talk about here was this 200 simple moving average. I just wanted to highlight this candle here. I think it was on March 21st.
Yeah,
We
so while I'm talking about this, pull up that Bitstamp chart as well when you have a chance, Griff. But basically, ever in the history of Bitcoin that we can see back as far as Bitstamp goes, and Bitstamp goes back the furthest. when Bitcoin is below that 200-day moving average for an extended period of time, it's bear, and it's bad bear. And when Bitcoin is above it, it's normally bull, and it's big time bull. So we look back at this, and click on log as well, Griff. It'll be easier to see it. But if you zoom out far enough, like
this is 2014.
Yep, 2013. That entire time, even we went. A lot of people have been calling for double bubble here, like just like we did in 2013, where we bubbled and then went sideways, and we pierced down through that a couple times. But for the most part, we respected that 200-day moving average, and then and then in 2018, you see us dropping below that 200-day moving average, and I mean it's ugly. We could not get back above it for 2 years there. I think it was late 2015 before we broke back above it.
Yeah,
so we broke above it and then came. Yeah, so and at that point, it's once you're above it and respecting above it, then you can confidently say we're in a bull trend until it's violated. And February we violated it, but we popped right back up. Again, if we don't pop here, there is a very real chance that we are bear until the next halving in 2020. And could that happen? Sure. Like we could absolutely pop back above that, and this could be a massive, massive bear trap. We've had that death cross as well that has been talked about ad nauseum in the media, who are normally about as bad as it gets at calling moves in any market. But we got that death cross and this 200-day moving average last week. We tried to breach it and bounced off it, and so this is the result of where we're at right now.
So let's talk about possibilities, I guess, lower.
Sure.
If we look at this, let me get off a log here. We can leave that up. Do you want to stay on stamp? I guess it doesn't matter. Let's go back to
yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter at all.
Let's see.
You have to zoom out a little bit if you're looking at VPVR here.
So what we were looking at here is, it's a white line. What we're looking at here was this gap, I think. So this volume profile basically just shows the volume at a given price level. And so if you look down here between this, what looks to be about 4,800 and 5,500, it's kind of in that 5K range. Basically, we got this gap where we kind of came up into it a little bit in the beginning of September, sold back down, and then we really jumped the gap here, in early October and just kind of bounced up above it.
Yeah, and what those gaps represent is basically an area where there either was not a whole lot of activity trading-wise at a price level, or an activity where just no time was spent in it. And this is more of because there just wasn't a whole lot of time spent in it. Getting above 3K was crucial, and once we got above 3K, we basically immediately popped to 6. And so if we were to break 6 coming back down, I think you're going to see a fairly large amount of activity in that level just to find out whether it's support or not. If it stays like it is, which is basically an untouched volume level, it's difficult to see price staying above 4K. I mean, we're most likely going to pop all the way to 3 at that point, but it's kind of to be determined. There's not any history there, and there's certainly not much volume in that range.
All right, so let's back out of that. Just generally speaking, pretty bearish here. It's not looking good. That can change obviously at any time, but we haven't really found a good support level. We've got basically everything has kind of turned bear. You've got basically every indicator that you'd have to break through to go back up. So I mean, pretty ugly mostly for Bitcoin at this point.
Yeah, you got horizontal resistance levels and all the indicator resistance levels. I do think it's key to point out that moves like this, just like up, are not terribly sustainable. I mean, we're not going to zero. There's a really good chance that we're going to get a bounce somewhere in here. All of the stock indicators are basically on the floor, showing massively oversold conditions. That Meyer multiple that Trace Meyer came up with is at historically low levels. I mean, they're not the lowest ever, but they're way down there. Everything right now is screaming buy. And so, does that mean you jump in and immediately start buying something? Absolutely not. Like, there's a quote that says markets can stay irrational for far longer than you can stay solvent, and that's very true. Like, you don't want to be guessing bottoms and playing in absolutes in markets, because they are dynamic. They move how they feel like. So you look at the widening of that. Pull that cloud back up real quick, Griff. Look at the widening of that cloud. I mean, that is a very, very large disparity in that cloud. And that normally means that there's going to be price movement that brings those, the leading and lagging span back closer together. I mean, the whole idea behind Ichimoku is if that gets that wide, there's going to be some kind of event that kind of pulls them back together, because it oscillates between bullish and bearish. So, 6K hasn't broken yet. There's plenty of reasons to be optimistic that we're at least getting a bounce. I'm not, certainly not calling for new highs this year, but when we broke 8K, it was a key level that everyone on Twitter and social media and everywhere was calling for and looking for. And when you break a key level like that, you see stop entries on shorts, you see stop losses on longs, and you see margin calls that cascade the book down. And this is the result of it. So, the volume wasn't small on this move, but it's been relatively small compared to other larger moves. Like, this isn't
that's true.
what you wouldn't look at this and say, man, that was massive volume, this is done. What you look at that and say is, yeah, it's definitely breaking down and on better than average volume, but at some point we're most likely going to see a bounce in here.
Yeah, but it wasn't like this volume candle,
Exactly right.
this big red candle,
Even
even these, even the last move to 6K. I mean, it was on much more volume than this. So, I mean, that could indicate that, the bear's running out of steam. There's not as much pressure there.
That's exactly right.
Just like if you were looking at, the volume chart of something going up, like when that last run happens and it's got no volume, that's usually a sign that, momentum shifting. So,
yes. And that's kind of where we're running into. Another thing I think that's key to hit is, they launched futures later part of 2017, where people could now play Bitcoin long and short without actually owning it. And that was a massive, massive event for Bitcoin in its progression. It now allows all these people who are like, all right, I'm looking at Bitcoin, I'm looking at the underlyings, and I don't think it's worth what it's worth. They don't actually have to own Bitcoin to short it. So what futures allowed people to do was be able to play the market short much cheaper than they would have been able to do had they had to buy enough Bitcoin to actually move the market down. So at some point you'll see that sentiment flip. People who really wanted to get in and they had price levels they wanted to get in, futures allow them to move a market down if they're willing to spend the money to load up a spot position. You can play 20 Bitcoins for the price of one Bitcoin, moving it on futures, whereas spot, you actually have to have a 1-for-1 of anything you're trying to do. So another key thing to note, you look at Bitcoin long term, there's 21 million that will ever be in existence. I think you would be fairly foolish not to be looking at these markets, but right now, let's wait until we see some kind of confirmation of a bottom or a support level before we're jumping in and trying to this long term.
All right, I think that's probably about all we have for Bitcoin. Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think that is it for Bitcoin. One thing I'd like to point out that is very interesting, and it's happened before, and it doesn't always mean anything, but you look at Bitcoin's gotten absolutely crushed for the last couple of days, and for the most part, alts haven't really wiggled against Bitcoin. Obviously, when Bitcoin's moving down, their dollar value is moving down, but some of these altcoins are actually up. There's green in those altcoin charts against
Yeah.
Bitcoin. And it doesn't mean that, hey, alts are going to take off in spite of Bitcoin's bearishness. That I have never seen that happen. So it's just something that's interesting to note. I mean, it could mean that, hey, guess what? We are going to get a bounce on Bitcoin and then it's all going to go down. Or it could just mean that alts have kind of found their interim bottoms to the point that, all right, against Bitcoin, they're not going to continue losing value. If Bitcoin keeps losing traction against the dollar, alts are going to go with it. But for now, alts have a chance to start making up some ground against Bitcoin if you're trying to make those kind of trades.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think, a lot of these coins are doing the same thing. They've kind of bottomed out. They're kind of flat. Granted,
Yep.
US dollar wise, they're getting killed, but
Yep.
if we can get a Bitcoin bounce, I mean, there's some argument to be said that this is Bitcoin sideways. I mean, we're bouncing around.
Yeah, and
if we can get a bounce and we don't break lower.
Sure. And, it is something you and I have talked about before. Bitcoin at 10K plus, it's going to be really difficult to get any kind of significant alt runs with Bitcoin that expensive. It just costs too much money to market. It puts an altcoin's valuation against the dollar way out of whack.
Yeah.
Bitcoin down in these levels, you can actually get some pretty legit altcoin runs against Bitcoin without that dollar value getting too insane. I mean, you look across the market, there's insanity everywhere. I mean, there's stuff that is utter shit that is worth billions of dollars. And if you want to own it, go for it. I'm not one of those. I mean, honestly, the vast majority of altcoins should be purely used to try and make more Bitcoin. So don't even pay attention to the dollar value unless it's something you truly believe in long term and you have no plans of selling it anytime soon.
True. All right, let's wrap it up. Guys, visit our website, thecryptocheatsheet.com. Follow us on Twitter at thecryptocs. Come join us in Telegram. We're talking markets all day.
And cry with us about these Bitcoin charts.
And lots of crying. Lots of crying going on. Support our partner, Moonware, moonware.com. Peace.